start. Okay. So first part of our question is talking about motivation, and we're going to talk about the goal of this and concern, like technology and so on.
Sure.
So on the first part, we're talking about motivation. Like what are the most enjoyable part of your job?
Of my job?
Yeah.
Like what is my motivation for doing my job?
Yeah.
For me, it has just been ever since I was like a little girl. I just always felt like I needed to do something to help protect the environment. And I was just kind of like heartbroken. When I was really little, it started with like litter. Like I'd see people littering and I was like, oh, that's like the most horrible thing in the whole world. I have to do something about this. So I just kind of felt like that was just something I always felt compelled to do. And then, you know, the older I got, it's less litter, you know, that I think about and mostly like the bigger problems with like waste systems and climate action and global warming and all that kind of stuff, climate change. So yeah, for me, it's really just the desire to help fix those problems. And I think that part of it also just comes from I've always had just a kind of a personal inherent connection to like nature and the natural world. That's just something that I also was just kind of born feeling like was important to me. So for that reason, I think I felt the need to like kind of protect those qualities of it.
And what are some of your motivation of doing like a good job on that part? Like is there like a reward system that you gain?
Can you explain what you mean by that?
It's like is it like promotion within the job that like if you do certain thing really well you can get like higher raise, or is there like system within?
Within this university, just the way that this university is structured, there's not necessarily like a bunch of levels of promotions necessarily. I would say that the biggest reward internally as far as the job goes would be that the better of a job I do, the bigger impact I'm going to have. So like hopefully it means I'm protecting the environment. Like that's kind of one of my inherent goals, but also that my influence would start to grow higher up. So right now, like I'm a low level person in the university. So like I can't influence the decision of, you know, the people who decide to build the buildings. So for me, like the longer I'm here and the better job I do, it's kind of like gaining the respect of my coworkers, which would allow me to make even more positive change, you know. And if you're here long enough and if you start to kind of grow a lot of big programs and the better you do, you get more responsibility, then my job level could change and I could also like get a promotion in that way and make more money. But it's kind of a funny system for us because it's not like there's someone above me in sustainability that I could get promoted to. It would be like a brand new role that would be created, kind of.
And do you see that's happening right now? Like is it progressing?
Not in the short term, and that's just the nature of working at a university like this. Like things happen really slowly, so I think it would be I would have to be here quite a long time for something like that to happen, I think. But you kind of never know, you know, things change all the time. It depends if a new leadership comes in, something like that could happen. But it's not something that's been like talked about or anything, so.
So move on to the like goal. How do you define it, like the progress and success in your job?
So that's actually something that we're defining right now, and since I have been here a year and a half, which sounds like a long time maybe to you guys, but it's not that long to be at a big institution like this. What we're doing right now is we're actually setting goals for our resources. So formerly with sustainability there really were not that many goals set, and so we're doing that now so that we can start to work towards those goals. So we are going to set goals that say we want to hit 50% waste reduction by 2025, or we want to decrease our carbon emissions by 50% by 2030. And so we're developing those goals, and then we also need to develop the way to measure those, and then that would be moving forward how I measure success. Right now, we don't have a very good system to measure success, and it's a challenge because it's hard to prioritize and it's hard to know how you're doing. So that's something that was not set up before I was here, a way to measure success. So I'm having to do it from scratch a little bit. Yeah.
And like after your typical work day, like what job's still in your mind at the end of the night that you're still thinking about?
Like of the things I am working on?
Yeah.
Usually it's whatever is going on that day, so it will change, I think, on a week-to-week basis. I think a lot, I guess most of the time for me, it's kind of that big picture stuff. Like I just shared with you, like we haven't set goals. We don't know where we're going necessarily. So that's something that I do think about a lot, is like we're doing all these little pieces here and there. I work on food systems, I work on the waste stuff, I look at ways that we can reduce our energy consumption, like a little bit all over the place, like a little scattered. So when I get home, I do a lot of thinking about like, how do we fit this all together, like the type of stuff that you can't just like make progress on during the day. You just have to like let it simmer in your brain a little bit, how it all fits together.
This question is kind of related to that. It's like your concern, like what are the most difficult, like annoying or frustrating aspect of your job?
Well, as you can probably imagine, a little bit of that lack of our clarity as an institution about where we want to go, because I think I have an idea of what our goals should be, but of course, if only I had those goals, like we're not going to reach them. We really need buy-in from lots of people. And trying to get everyone to kind of come around and agree upon the same things and be willing to work towards those same things, as you can imagine, is just extremely hard to do. So I think that's the part that can be quite frustrating. And the additional part to that is sometimes feeling like it's related to that, but it's kind of engagement, and that's with students and also with the team members, the people that work here, that need to be bought into that shared vision of where are we trying to go here, and getting people to care and to be kind of committed to working with me on it.
This part of the question was talking about like the tool and technology you're using. What additional tool do you use to accomplish like tasks in your job? Like, not the new technology, but like the traditional tool that they give.
Traditional tools?
Yeah.
I mean, because of a lot of what I do, really it just ends up being coordinated, like kind of like cat herding. Like, come on people, let's all get together. So like emailing really is like my primary way of accomplishing things, emailing and face-to-face meetings. And then as far as like tracking resources, I just use Excel a lot. And Excel is definitely has been the most reliable tool for me, especially as far as actually tracking like where we're at and what kind of progress we're making. And I like Excel because it's so customizable, like some of the other softwares that I use, they only display this type of information, and you can't necessarily like take the data behind the scenes and make new information with it. So Excel, you can like, it's just, you've got all the raw information there.
And where does any of those tools like fall short? Like they're not really reaching your goal or hoping? Or...
like the new technology kinds? Well, I think that, so like the main technology that I think of is that dashboard technology, the one that's displayed on the screens. One way it's not helping, it's not necessarily the problem of the software, but it's still that engagement piece that we can't get people to like sit there and play with it, which maybe they don't want to, but I guess the purpose of using a software like that is so people are engaged with it, and like people aren't, so that part. And then the second part is kind of what I was getting at with like not having, with only having certain information displayed. Like I can look at the historical data, and I can look at the raw numbers, but it's like if I need to calculate anything about those numbers. It's not like that software can do it for me. So something like Excel helps, where I have the data and I can do whatever I want with it. So when you have some of those fancy softwares, it's like you can only really do what the function of that software is, and sometimes that's just not what you need, depending on what you're trying to do with it. The last thing is that it also is really glitchy and just goes down half the time.
Yeah. Okay. So how do you stay up to date and get information on the industry and like professionals?
A number of ways. A lot just from my my professional connections and contacts, who are just people that I know that we just kind of keep up, and so I'll go to networking events and conferences, that type of stuff. So conferences are huge, and then there's a lot of organizations. Some of them are the conference organizations, and others where I just subscribe to their newsletters, and so it's just like I just get a bunch of stuff in my email inbox every day about exciting news stories. And we also have like a monthly call with other Washington State higher education sustainability people. So basically the people in my position at all the universities across the state. And we have a monthly call where we just all get together on a conference call and talk about what's going on and brainstorm how we can collaborate. So that's a good way to kind of figure out what's new and cool, and yeah.
Okay. How is your office like organized to help you accomplish your goal in the task?
Well, my office is just me and my assistant worker. Having her is amazing, and she basically can help me execute all the small tasks, because like since we try to do so many different things and we're also trying to figure out how to fit it all together, it allows me to be able to spend a lot of my time and energy figuring out what we should do next, and then being like, this is what we need to do next, you start working on that so I can figure out what we're going to do after that. So she's kind of just like a general assistant, which has been, that format has been really beneficial to me. I know that other sustainability offices will have like your person in charge, and then the other people, there will be someone really dedicated to like specific tasks. So like they only do outreach, or they only run this one program. And because we're so small and kind of from the ground up here, it's helpful to have one person that can kind of do anything. And then the fact that I'm in the facilities department is also extremely beneficial, because I can go directly connect with the people that influence the resources that we're dealing with. So there are some sustainability offices where they're not in facilities, they're like in the president's office, and then they've got to go try to track down like the custodians, because they're the ones dealing with the waste. And if you don't know them on like a one-on-one basis, that's like, it's a pretty tough connection to make. But those people are like my friends and coworkers, so I can just at lunch, I'll just be like, hey, like I heard that all the compost is getting thrown in the trash, like what's that about, guys? Why are you doing that? And that's actually a more effective way to like make those changes happen, when you can kind of get that personal connection with the people who are doing that.
What are the typical students that like attend your event or all your classes?
Mostly environmental studies students. So they're students that are similar to how I was, like how I got into it, passionate about the environment. A lot of them are very like natural science heavy, so they like to study plants and animals. And so most of them are in IAS in the environmental disciplines, have probably taken classes in the wetlands and want to do biology and that kind of stuff. Very like earth science focused people.
What kind of work do you see that those students do to promote sustainability?
On campus? Well, students that are interested, what is the best is when you have students that are interested that will hold events and things that are relating to sustainability. So it really varies depending on who is involved, like on people's individual interests. So like last year, there was one of the students in the Achieving Community Transformation group. They lead service projects, and they can lead service projects on any topic. but he was someone who was really passionate about the environment. So all of his service projects were service projects with like the North Creek Forest and like very environmentally focused projects. So like students like that, like that's kind of one way where you'll see students doing a lot of work, and then that's really helpful. And then we really try to just get students like talking and teaching each other, like peer-to-peer education about why sustainability is important, the proper way to throw away your, dispose of your trash. Like, we try to get people to we try to facilitate a peer-to-peer learning exchange. It's been tough to make that actually happen, but that's one of the goals for that.
And what would be your ideal use of technology to get like students engaged in sustainability?
I think it can be, I think it would depend, it could be any which way. The best would just be something that is interesting enough for students to like want to participate with it. So do you mean like what topic, or?
Could go either route, like the use of technology, like do you see them using like mobile app to keep them engaged, or like, like a PowerPoint?
I think, like, I would imagine that like an app or something is just what people use. I guess I would ask you guys what you think, because you probably know better than I do at this point, like what is engaging for people to use. And so I think apps are like everyone uses apps all the time for everything, so I think it's something that people are used to using, and if we could somehow get some level of information about sustainability or something that helps people actually engage with it through an app, and that would be a compelling way, that to me seems the most promising. But I'm like not very tech savvy, so I could be missing all sorts of good things.
Yeah. So actually, since our last interview, we changed our idea on our app. Like really, it's completely different from what we had before.
Okay.
What we had before was like some augmented reality that can sort recycling and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But then through our interview and research, like through design, we realized that what most of our interviewers want is that they want an app that can create a positive conversation about sustainability.
Yeah.
And that people can actually do something about it instead of just like knowing, oh, that's the
Yeah.
problem, and just I feel like we're doomed. So we want to create an app that can have all the pack information into one and have it relatable to them and like other people. So like the news about forest fire that in Southern California, if we can relate that to their family or someone they know, then it might help them realize that they gotta do something about it. Like they can't just sit down.
I think that's a great idea, because I think, like, you're right, like the problem, like you could have an app where people would interact with, learn how to sort garbage, but it's not really a matter of them knowing how to sort their garbage. It's like they need to feel compelled to do something with it. And that's a problem we have with those energy dashboards. It's like no one really cares about the energy information there. And so really one of the key pieces is getting them to care, which would be connecting it to something that they care about, like have a reason for why they should be interested in this stuff.
And now we're on the part where we try to define our audience, so that we're creating like persona and stuff to target our audience, like who we want to have this app built for. So to the next question, like who do you think could be our main audience for this app?
I think that the students should be. I think that would be awesome. If it was transferable to more than just the student body, like also the people that work here and the teachers and stuff, that would be great too. But I think the students are kind of like, they're the hardest target market for me, not being a student myself. So I think that would be good.
So do you think like voting, like registered voter would be important to include in the app also?
If they're a registered voter or
Yeah.
not? Why would you want to differentiate registered voters versus non-registered voters?
Because how we started is we wanted to be impact just like beyond just in our school too. So like if they know there's like a bill that's going on in the House right now that could impact their sustainability and like environment, and they couldn't do something about, like, is there another route that they can do instead of.
Yeah, so kind of helping them see like what they could do, and one way is potentially voting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
'Cause we noticed there's other, like immigrant or like people that's on their visa, they see this bill that could affect where they live right now, but they can't do much about it because they can't register to vote.
Yeah, totally.
So we wonder if that could be like, or could be included onto our app.
Yeah, like they can register to vote on the app. Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Yeah, I thought you meant like target it to only registered voters, but you'd almost you'd want to target it to everyone so that people that don't, haven't realized why it's important to vote, they learn about this stuff, and then here's probably the most important thing you could do, really, is to vote on these things.
And for app, because we want our app to have like to create conversation and try to define like the setting, like where the app would fit for. Is it like a party conversation or like casual conversation or like formal where they can use the app for?
Yeah.
So we just want to get your opinion on like what.
I think any could work. A lot of these topics, because they get like heavy and well, not heavy, but I think you guys are spot on about having like a positive connotation, like making it so that people feel empowered, because it's very easy to talk about this stuff and be extremely like disempowered feeling about it. I would still think like it's maybe not that fun to talk about like at a party, but maybe if we made it fun to talk about at a party, maybe that would be different. But I see it being as a little bit more of like not at a party, but in a more, I think it's good to be like in casual interactions, but you kind of want it to be in a place where then they can go take action about it. So if you're talking about these things at a party, it's really easy to be like, you're not going to go register to vote in the middle of the party, you're not going to do something about it in the middle of the party, and so you may be likely to just like leave that concept behind and forget about it, so doing it kind of more like just in your kind of a casual interaction between students when they're like on a break from studying or after class, or coworkers when they're at their lunch break, like when you're kind of casually interacting but still able to like in a space where you would be more likely to kind of do something, take that information and do something.
Next one, like, what feature you think we should include in the app to keep the student engaged?
I really don't know. That's again like something that I would look to you guys for help letting me know, because I don't know what keeps students engaged. Just truly don't know.
Have there any like work that have worked for you, or like that you see that's like in the past as the student is more engaged than the other?
Not so. Most of the students that I've worked with, and I'm included in this, have been like self-selecting, interested in it. So like you heard about how I got into this, I just cared about it, and so I think it's hard for me to understand how to connect to the people, like what's engaging for people that don't naturally care about it, because I've always fallen into that category, and most of the students I work with are also students who fall into that category. It's like the Student Sustainability Club. They're like really driven to do this because they think it's really important, and I have not had a ton of success in connecting with students that don't necessarily care about it.
Do you ever engage in the conversation like outside of your work?
About these things?
Yes.
Yeah, like all of the time, kind of. I have a lot of friends that are also interested and passionate about these things. Plus, they're very real, like concepts that we see all the time with, lots of laws that come up, all the natural disasters, like issues of climate change and sustainability. I feel like they just come up in the news all the time, so we'll talk about it and that kind of stuff.
In what setting do you just do it in like just in social media or like outside?
I'll do it like with my friends when we're like getting together for drinks, and like that's why I know I said that like people want to talk about it at parties, and like we totally do, and it's like not a very fun thing to do, which is why I wouldn't necessarily like recommend it for people that don't care about it, because we totally like I'll talk about it with my friends in our like spare fun time, but we really like to get really deep about stuff like that. So and again, kind of, you know, a self-selected group of people that are, you know, interested in it. So
I think we'll come into an end. Solve a question today. Do you have any questions you want to ask us?
I don't think so.
Anything you want to tell us that's related to targeting art and like creating a persona?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think we covered what I would have wanted to say.
Yeah, so I was actually wondering myself, so we don't want to make like assumptions about like these personas that like we're about to create with these users, and one way of researching is to, you know, actually find people like this persona that we're technically creating. But I was wondering if we can't find someone who fits like the bill of like this persona that we're trying to create, how would we do research on them to make it like not an assumption? You know what I mean?
Well, can you explain to me what the persona is? Like, is it someone like me who's interested, or is it someone who's not interested who we're trying to get interested?
So, like for example, my persona that I'm trying to dial in on is like a business guy, a businessman who's like too busy to do research on environmental stuff, but he does like care about the environment. He's just way too busy.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Like I want to assume that there's people like that, but I also don't want to make the assumption.
Yeah.
You know?
So yeah, I would also assume that you could find people like that, because I think that there are lots and lots of people like that. And if you couldn't like interview a person, there is a lot of academic research out there relating to, I would do searches on it using like talking about people's attitudes about the environment and their sustainable behaviors. There's a lot of research about like values and attitudes about the environment and how they correlate with sustainable behaviors. And it's actually really interesting, because what you'll find is that and not only with sustainable behaviors, you'll also see research about values and attitudes and how they correlate to like other things.
Okay.
So depending, I mean, there's a lot out there, so not all of that will be useful for, you know, but I think you could start there. But it's interesting because there are studies that are like how people self-report their attitudes about the environment, and then like we investigate their behaviors, and like do they go hand in hand? Do people that care more always engage in more sustainable behaviors? And a lot of times like they don't, you know, and sometimes they do. And so the terms attitudes and values, environmental attitudes and
Got it.
you'll find academic literature on that.
Attitudes
So-
and values.
So that would be that might be a good way to do it,
And-
because they'll do something similar to that. They'll explain profiles of people, you know, someone with pro-environmental attitudes, who, and even they'll look a lot of research like with the demographics too, like pro-environmental attitudes in certain income brackets versus other income brackets, certain cultural backgrounds.
And then within that, we can kind of hone in on like a certain like person.
Yeah, totally. Like, so you should be able to kind of, you should be able to find some profiles that match at least tidbits of their research. Yeah.
Yeah,
Totally.
and then in that, like we could even like refine the thing that we're assuming.
Totally.
You know?
Yeah.
Cool.
Help cover all of them. You guys have any other questions?
I think I'm good.
Did I miss any question?
We went over pretty much everything.
Okay. Then
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you.
Cool. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you guys.
Thanks, guys.
That's a lot of